All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Coding in K2, boosting the 4C's of 21st century learning. I thank all of you for taking the time out of your day to come in and be part of my presentation. I know some of you were probably here for the other presentations before this, and so like I said, I appreciate your time. We will go through this, and I'll make sure I answer some questions and things like that along the way. So if you have something, just please raise your hand. If I can get somebody to raise their hand and make sure my mic is good. There we go. Awesome. Thank you. So perfect. I see some familiar faces, or at least names, so I appreciate that. All right, so let's get started. So a little bit about myself. My name is Chris Humphreys. Prior to this year, I've taught first grade for 3 years. And then during that time, I took a deep interest in technology in our school. And I really wanted to kind of take the helm on that. And it just so happened that our educational technologist retired, fortunately for me, and I happened to be able to be certified as an educational technologist. I applied for the position, I interviewed, and was subsequently hired as our educational technologist. So pretty excited about that. I work in a primary elementary school for the Department of Defense. So if some of you don't know what that is, basically all of our base schools east of the Mississippi have schools on them, on base, and we serve all military students and their families. So a little bit of background about where I came from and how I got into this. I grew up coding. That was back before anybody even, well, at least for me at my age, I even knew what that was. My father had started out with a Commodore 64. Anybody remember those? Give me a show of hands. I know somebody out there had one. Apple IIe, we had those. Perfect. Yep. Yeah, we all come from somewhere. So, that's where I started, and he got in it. He got the pieces, and was actually one of those first ones that put it together and got it working. So I got in, kind of messing around. He was a truck driver, believe it or not, and I got in and found the books and started figuring out how to make the computer talk and do all kinds of weird stuff. So after I saw this program come out, where they were getting students involved in coding, I said, "Wow!" I said, "That's exactly what I was doing." And it never dawned on me. So, who knows what avenues I could have taken had my love of that been fostered, throughout my educational career, where I would be now. So I wanted to take that on as an educational technologist in our school. So that's a little bit about me and how I got into this. So why code? I think if you can take a look, the quote I have up there is, "I think everybody in this country should learn how to program a computer because it teaches you how to think." I think that's a great quote to kind of kick this off with, because it really does, really does tell you how to think. It changes the way you look at things. So simple research, it's estimated, the Labor Department said, by 2022, there's going to be 1.2 million computer science jobs out there. That's amazing. Because if you look, I got my Tech and Learning magazine, and it's the 35th anniversary, and I kind of dated myself. I looked and I said, wow, I was in, early in when this really began. So my students that I've been teaching are going to graduate around 2024. So if we don't start doing something soon, our students are going to miss the boat on this. We're graduating fewer computer science majors. That is disheartening. The number of students signing up for advanced computer science classes, even more so. It's something that you really have to get an interest in early on. It's just like any other kind of science, biology, space. If you ask any of those astronauts where their kind of love of that came from, it was probably an elementary school teacher along the way that had that. Just some research that I've done. Elementary school basically just has a computer lab. They do because the kids aren't changing classes, they do very little of that moving around. middle school, if you get into middle school, I looked at what my children did in middle school, and they basically got 1 credit of computer tech in their whole, their time during middle school. Half of it was keyboarding, the other half was digital literacy. So pretty interesting things when you think about how we get into this stuff. High school. My 2 sons are now in high school, and they both have 1 computer science course requirement for graduation. That is really interesting when it comes down to what they could end up doing. The whole school district has gotten iPads and tablets and things like that, but we're still only giving our kids 1 computer credit for the whole time that they're in 4 years of high school. And that's just really, really sad when you look at how the other countries around the world are taking on technology. So let's talk a little bit about today's mission. So let's understand how coding in K2 classrooms meets the skills for 21st century learning. Create a program that fits the needs of your school, and to understand who can use this program. So that's what I hope that you take away from this presentation today, and hopefully I'll be able to help get you to that point. So what led to the decision for coding in our school? It shows, a lot of schools are moving to where they're moving away from, what do they call it? When they, like elementary schools, centers, I guess is a good word. That's kind of an antiquated term now, because now they're moving towards workstations where they have to give a product. One of those workstations is, obviously for us, is a technology station. So collaborating, and they're having to produce something. They're not, even kindergartners aren't finger painting anymore. It's the way we, look at it at kindergarten. They're having to produce and think and talk and collaborate and do all those things in school. Increased development in 21st century skills at our school. That's in our school vision. We want to spread that throughout, not just in the computer lab, but in kindergarten, elementary, first grade, second grade. So some of the research, where they talk about coding is developing that problem-solving ability, retelling, deepening their understanding of reading comprehension, math computation, things like that. The difficulty with the skills at the early ed level is, there's no iPads or things like that. So we're restricted to laptops. So we don't have a lot of wireless technology. Let me put it that way. And we have laptops, but we're not dealing with iPads or anything like that. So when you collaborate, you want them to be able to talk, communicate, work on it on a single device. And then we have a pending advanced ed accreditation. Anybody been through an accreditation with advanced ed in the audience? And okay. Where our school is going through reaccreditation, and 21st century skills are at the forefront of all of that. So we're hoping to boost that through a couple of things, and I thought this was a great way for that to happen. Any questions so far? Awesome. So, who participated in my program that I started? We have, for my school, we're a pre-K second school. So we're a primary school. We're considered a small school. We only have 269 students in the school right now. So we have 4 kindergarten classes, 3 first and 2 second. So you can see how it narrows from the bottom to the top, and that's largely due to our military body. So for our base, our local base, typically the Marines have a younger family at this point. So we have a lot of younger students. We have pre-Ks that are pretty big, and our kindergartens are pretty big. And then by the time they age, they tend to move to another place, duty station. So I established a training program for each of the grade levels. I kept anecdotal notes on all of them, and then this allowed me to make adjustments to the progress of each of the students as we worked through this. Is that a question, sir? All right. So let's talk about who coding is for. Coding's really for everybody. I think it's a great opportunity for anybody to become a little bit more familiar with how computers work. The K-12 regular classrooms, certainly important for computer classes to have it. It's super for after-school programs where students are, getting that, have an hour, 2 hours until mom and dad picks them up or whatever the case. STEM and STEAM programs are fantastic for doing that. And if you notice, I put special education classrooms up there, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But this program was really designed for all those areas, with the exception of special ed, but I really think it's can be used in that area. So let's talk. So what program did we use? I chose to use code.org. There's a lot of them out there, and I researched many of them during the course of trying to come up with what to use. So I went with this one. It was very easy to use. It was very appealing. When you looked at it, the kids responded to it well. It was very easy to navigate. And I really liked how they took the time to align it to the ISTE standards, as well as other Common Core standards. They also have a lot of supporting materials that go along with it. They have a framework, they have standards, they have other support documents, and it's really set up to look like your lesson plans and things like that if you were going to use it in the classroom or a computer lab or something like that. Each level, when you get to a stage, I'll show you, has its own individual lesson plan. And then at the bottom, if you can, my favorite part up there is the cost. Free. And us as educators, I think we really enjoy having free access to something that will help our benefit our students. So it's amazing that this program is free and that you can get as much out of it as we do. Especially with the amount of budget cuts and things like that we've all been forced to contend with, reductions of computers or things like that. So it's pretty good program. So let's talk about boosting those 21st century skills. And I always start with the 4C's. So I try to talk to my students. That's part of our goal and vision as a school. And I wanted to find a way, how could I have this happen? How can I make this work in my school? So when I found this program and I thought about how each part would fit into the 4C's, and I said, that's pretty amazing. Our school was coming out of a time when the people that were in my position before me they didn't have the opportunity to have a class as a whole. So as the educational technologist this year, I have a computer class. So I'm in the special rotation like PE and art, music, and things like that, where prior to me taking over, the students didn't get that. Really, the ET for the educational technologist was just a push-in. He would go in and help if you needed it, things like that. So he would work with students on a small basis, but not really teach them whole group type of instruction, or bring any kind of programs to the school. So that's where I've been able to bring them in and put them in a program to do this. So the first one I want to talk about is communication. Now, you know that we all have students, especially in the K2 section. Everybody's stuck in the what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. Nobody wants to share or do anything like that. So that's a huge hurdle to try to get over in this early age group. And this program really set the stage for how to fix that. They have a pair programming. So when they came into my classroom, let me kind of set the stage a little bit. I have enough computers in the computer lab to support all the students for each class that comes in. But what I did is I found that at the beginning of the school year, they would put their headphones on, they would work on whatever I told them to, but they wouldn't say anything. They were working in a vacuum. And I said, well, how can I fix that? Well, when I found this program and I brought it to the school, they have a thing in there, it's called pair programming. And I had never really heard it called that way before, or called it that before, but they have a fantastic video and a fantastic set of rules that I've trained my entire school to use. And it really only took me 1 or 2 weeks to see everybody to get them to understand the concept. So with pair programming, they share a computer. So when the kids come in, they go to their computers, and at first I would assign who would be, they have a driver and a navigator, and they understand that now. So the driver is the one who's controlling the mouse, and the navigator is the one who kind of sits next to them and helps them out. They know that it's not playing a video game because they're not taking turns. They're working together to solve problems. They're sharing ideas. They're pointing out what can happen next. And if they run into trouble, they talk it out. They learn to ask questions about each other. They learn how to ask me questions, which is even more important. And then they also learn how to respond to my questions because they know what's happening in what they're doing. So it's been a fantastic way to increase communication between the students and their teacher, not just me, but in the regular classroom, so when they go back, they understand. That communication piece also ties in, the communication falls into collaboration. It falls into everything else. So if you can nail down the communication, you're halfway there, and this program really does a good job with this. Any questions about that? All right, well, let's move on. Let's talk about collaboration using coding. Some of the things that I've found in there, it's been so much fun watching them work together and get excited about their successes, and also kind of see their faces when they fail at something. They are used to being in the classroom, and they think they always have to get something right. So it's been great to see them, fail, figure out what went wrong, talk to their partners, fix it, go back, and be successful at it. So it's taught that it's okay to fail. So that's important. Every level of education and employment has a collaboration component at some point. If you've collaborated with somebody either at your job or sometime during school, raise your hand. Let me see if hopefully it shows true. No, I get a couple of hands. Great, couple of hands. But we always work with somebody, even if you don't learn how to do that and learn how to talk to somebody, learn how to collaborate with somebody, you're really going to have a hard time. So this helps them understand that they can collaborate together. That coding, if you take a look at the picture up there, that's 2 of my students, and they did this on their own. They really started kind of pointing and talking, and I walk around the classroom and I just kind of keep notes, and I listen to their conversations, and they're not talking about what happened at recess. They're not talking about lunch or what happened in class. They're talking about what they're doing right now in front of the computer. They're solving their problems. And you always have, the typical, we'll kind of play around, but that's easily corrected, in early education. But they are learning how to do it. And I've had so many teachers come back and tell me, that they work so much better together in their regular classrooms because I've taught the teachers what their rules are. And when the teacher says, make sure you follow the rules of pair programming, the kids automatically know what that is because I spent the time teaching them. So that's been a great success of ours with collaboration. They do fantastic work for that. They get to see, like I said, computer science as a social and collaborative opportunity. Before it was computers. They get on the computer, they play a game, put headphones on, they're talking. But now they get to see that they can work with other people. It's okay to talk to somebody else. I have them communicate. They can go across the room. If they need somebody they think can help them better, they know that they can go over there, and 3 or 4 of them will be, around a computer talking about and working out their problems. That really never happened in the school before because they didn't know they could do that without getting in trouble. So that's been a great opportunity for us. Any questions about that? Okay. All right, fantastic. So we just wrapped up collaboration. Let's talk about some critical thinking. Now, if you look up on the board behind me, I've got a screenshot of what the code actually looks like. So when they get in there, they're able to see. I hope everybody can see it okay. If not, I can certainly, I'll share this presentation with you and you can see it and go to it. But this really took technology to the next level for our students. They had to not just produce something, but they have to really understand how the computer works and why it does certain things. So at the beginning of the year, I taught them just basic computer skills, how to drag and drop, how to copy and paste, how to log in, how to use the keyboard, how to do research. We've got, there's lots of online research, how to use our programs that we use. We have like paint programs, it's called Pixie, but they know how to get in and type and draw things, make diagrams, which is really cool. But this takes it to, another level. Part of that is they helps them develop that reasoning skill, problem solving, debugging. I put that up there because part of course 1 in the code.org program, they have to learn how to debug. So when I asked them, what does debugging mean to you? And they all went to, because they're, God love them, whatever in the computer. So we talked to them about what debugging is, and that now they all, if you ask them, they all know that it's a problem and not a real bug. So that's been really fun. But now showing them that, they know they have to go in and fix something. Either, so the code behind me shows 4 or 5 separate codes, which they put in Blockly. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of that before, but it's not actually like when I was writing it on my Commodore 64 or my Apple. They've put the JavaScript code into these blocks, and it's not about writing the code, it's about understanding what the code does for them, and eventually they'll get to that point. But this has been a great starting point for where that code comes from. So if I wish I had my screen up, I could show you a little bit better, but we're having a little problem. If we're trying to move something from left to right and then it has to move up, if you put a bunch of code in there where there's 2 down, they have to go through and understand the process that that's not where it's supposed to go, that they have to take that code out and then fix it and try it again. So really they've developed that critical thinking of, okay, does this work? And they don't just quit. Okay, now they have to go back and go through step by step, just like learning how to, develop a website. If you're using, something that has JavaScript or, whatever, um, we've all pored over, hundreds of lines of code to look for something that's missing or something that we didn't put in right. And we're teaching them now. So, at 5, 6, and 7, they've developed that skill. Algebraic equations. If you look in the Tech and Learning magazine, the article that just came out, basically, coding is that algorithm. It gives them that computational thinking. So it's been great at developing their critical thinking skills. One of our goals in our school is problem solving. So this has already helped, I feel, from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year, or from now, that their scores are going up. They're able to think a little bit more abstractly from the word problems that the teachers are giving them, or what's on the test. So that's been really fun doing. So moving on to creativity. Now, creativity is a little bit harder at this stage, simply because of their age group and their ability. The course is set up to where you have course 1, course 2, course 3, which is where I would kind of teach from. So I started all of the students on course 1, which is basically for ages 4 to 6-year-olds. So it's pretty appropriate for my age group. But since they had no background for this, I wanted to all start them on a level playing field. Now, my first graders, having some experience now, next year we'll be able to do course 2 or course 3 as second graders, and same thing as for my kindergartners. The kindergartners will have a little bit of background, and they'll better. So I think over the next couple of years, as long as this sticks around, I would be really interested to do this presentation again and just see how far we've gone up to that point. So what I did for this, we went through, they trained, and then I let them go into what's called the play lab. And the play lab is set up basically for an hour of code. It's where they're supposed to sit, and it takes them from the very beginning to the end, and then they get a certificate at the end of it for completing their hour of code. Now, I did this with second grade just as a kind of an experiment leading up to this presentation. So since I only have 2 of them, it was really easy. So the first class, I let them choose. I said, do you want to work individually, or do you want to work as in your pairs? And it split 50-50. Half wanted to work independently, half wanted to continue working in groups. And only 2 out of the whole class completed the whole code program, where they actually were able to get in. And the final product of that is where they get to use all the skills that they've learned through the courses and create their own little video game using the code that they learned. So the second class, I told them they can all work individually. So they all logged on to their own computers, which they hadn't done for over 2 months. But I had more complete... Oh, sorry, let me back up. They worked individually, but I told them they could collaborate with anybody out there. So they could talk to their elbow partner if they needed to. They could go over and bring somebody over to help them out. And I kind of left that open to where they had to talk to 3 before they talked to me about a problem if it got too hard. And the class that worked individually, and I let them collaborate with others, not just being tied to their elbow partner, I had greater success. They were able to, almost half of the class was able to finish, which was a big difference from the first class where they kind of chose which one was which, and then they worked with that. So it shows that collaboration piece really works for that. The kindergartners, they found that part a little bit difficult, and I didn't want to stress them out because they're still learning. They're getting the concept of what they're doing, and that creativity in the computer field is a little difficult for them at the moment. And then they have great unplugged activities, where unplugged means we take it to the cafeteria or in the open room, and they don't use the computer. They learn how to, I showed them how to code, because every rug in an elementary school basically has squares, and it's, designed for them to be able to sit in there. And I showed them, if I have to get from this side of the rug to that side of the rug, can you tell me how to do it one step at a time? And they moved me. I said we had to come up with a way to do that. So move forward one step, take 2 steps left, and get through a maze. So we were able to do that, which was a lot of fun. So the upper grades, first and second grade, had a lot of success creating their own puzzles to have other classmates solve, which was, really kind of taking what they learned on the computer and applying it to a different situation, which was really good. It shows that, it transferred their learning a bit. So let's talk about some challenges that I run into. During the course of this was time. Just having that time. I get a 45-minute block with my students, kind of like this presentation, give or take. So by the time you come in, they only see me once a week. So I take the first 15 minutes and I really just refresh where they were, what they learned, some of the things that they had problems with, and then get them started where they're going to go. So that really eats into that time. So they get about 30 minutes, but they also have to log in on their own. Because of our security, we have each teacher has their own class account. So the students have to learn that and have to be able to log in. Otherwise, you'd be running around logging in 19 computers. So we really kind of taught them how to do that. So that eats into a little bit more time. So it goes fast, but it does work okay, because you don't want them to move along too fast, which is something we'll get into. Staff buy-in, really getting other teachers to buy into what you're trying to do in the computer lab. A lot of people think that, said, oh, they're on the computer, they're just playing games. And that's been the most frustrating thing, is for them to understand that we're not just playing games. We're teaching them how to read and write, using code, or teaching them code through the program I use, through code.org. It really has showed them that they can use this anywhere. Resources is another one. So, if you have one-to-one, fantastic, that's even better. But if you're limited, you're not completely out, because, if you can put in that pair programming process, that works out great too. So resources can be an issue. Basic computing skills. I literally took the first half of the school year and just went through with everybody how to get around on a computer. And now they're changing tabs. They've got different programs pulled up. They know how to switch back and forth. And that's when I knew that they were pretty well ready for to jump into doing something like this. Varying levels of development. That was probably the hardest thing to get over. But using the pair programming part of this code, you really tend to see where they are. So you get that zone of proximal, that development, and you see where they start to kind of fall apart. So that you want to keep them inside that in that zone. So if you have to move around the students to kind of fit that better, I think that works good, because I've got a couple that are partnered and they're just rock stars. I mean, they jump into it and they just go. And then I've got some who, it's funny it's not funny, but it's easy to see where it comes from. If they're successful typically in their everyday classes, they tend to do very well with the coding. If they struggle with reading or that conceptual thinking and things like that, then they're probably going to struggle a little bit with this. So if I mixed it up, not necessarily given a higher and a lower, that's not it at all, but because their abilities change when they do this. Some who cannot read or read very little actually thrive more at some points, or in some cases, than the others. So until you do it, you really don't know what you're going to get. So I recommend, if you're going to do this program, to kind of start out, see how it works for you before you start making any changes. For us, a challenge was not being able to have individual accounts. Now, because the students have to have their own email address, I guess. And a lot of schools are going to that because, with Google and Google Apps for Education and things like that, schools are very open to being able to let them use it, especially if they have a Google account or something like that. But we don't have that ability, so I have to keep very good anecdotal notes for each class every week about where they left off. I try to keep them within kind of close range of each other, so I don't want them to have to redo the whole thing every time they shut down their computer. So this allows them to start up fresh, if you will, and I can kind of keep track of everybody. So that's been one of the biggest challenges, because if they can log into this program, if they have an account, the program will actually keep track of where they are in the courses and how much they've done. So in a perfect world, if everybody had their own account, I could start them in kindergarten, and by the time they leave us in second grade, they've had 3 years of coding, and they can go back and follow and see every piece of code that they've done and every course that they've completed. So, I hope we get to that at some point, but I know the upper grades are able to do that already. But I just wish we could get over that as an elementary school. It kind of puts you back a century when you're having to track over 200 students by hand, when there's a simple, easy way to do that. So let's talk about some of the lessons that I learned during this. Is that, again, that development, just kind of where everybody is as students. Teaching them how to ask three before me. That drove me mad almost for the first couple of weeks while we were doing this, because I really wanted to help them. And then as I thought more about it in developing their communication skills and their collaboration, I was like, okay, think about it as a regular classroom teacher. What would you tell your students to do? So now they know. Ask three before me. They can talk to their partner. They can talk to the next partner closer to them, or they can go out somebody and ask them to come over, which they have to be nice to do it. Trying to keep the classes relatively close together. My hope for this was to start all the classes and do one stage per week, so to speak, and be able to talk about what they're doing, the problems they're running into, things like that. But it didn't work out, and now I'm finding that there's can we mute our mics? Okay. All right. Sorry about that. When we try to keep them together, so now they're a couple of stages apart. So if they're at stage 3, then I have the early finishers who are really good at coding. They're at 4 or 5. And I try not to let them get too far apart. And what I do is I have the ones who are really good at this, they go and they're code helpers. They go help find some other, another pair that may be struggling, and they can answer questions. So it kind of extends my arm to others, and then they get more peer-to-peer instruction rather than me having to come over and solve the problem for them. it's fun to sit back and just watch them work that out. And if they run into problems, of course, you always step in before they really get frustrated. But you want them to learn and to get better at doing this, which I think they will do. Allow for individual programming opportunities. So, you don't want to always force students to work with somebody, because as computer programmers and in technology, we tend to find ourselves by ourselves anyway. But at the same time, you also want to let them communicate with each other. That peer-to-peer, when you develop that, if I run into problems, I'm the only technology person at the school. So I tend to find that I call my peers who are in the same position at other schools to help me. So why not use that for them? Because to teach them that's a resource available to them. Because if I don't know something, I'll look it up or I'll ask somebody, my peer, especially before I have to go tell my principal I don't know how to do something. She doesn't really like to hear that. So that's some of those things that I've learned. Keep records of where you're at, what you're doing. I like to keep notes about some of the struggles that they've had, because I know it'll help me remember and be better at this next year. And then finally is never forget students with disabilities. I had one of the most amazing things happen to me when I was sitting there, and I had a student who has a shadow come in, because we're mainstream students. So he's in there and he doesn't want his shadow, which typically they would try to help. And what I found is when I put him on this program, he flourished. I mean, this is a child who doesn't communicate typically as other students, typically doesn't do the exact same level of work, but he's coding. He understands the process. What he has in his head is coming out through his hand, through the mouse, and he's making things happen, and he's happy about doing it. He's successful. So rather than being in some room and being told, no, that's not right, he's actually in an environment where he can actually be successful, and it was super. And I've got 3 students that I'm doing that with right now. And that's some of the best things that I've learned, is to not not to think that somebody can't do it. Always let them try, and then you'll be surprised at what happens. Oops, wrong way. So again, some of the successes that I've run into, successes that I've had, let me put it that way. Students overcoming difficult problems. That was a great opportunity. Being excited about their learning. When you watch kids and they're standing and they're out of their chairs and they're jumping and they're like, yes, because they worked and they actually solved the problem. It's like you feel amazing as a teacher, because you watch that you have brought them to this point. Learning how to work with others. That's another thing. I mean, I used to walk into classrooms and they would literally be fighting over the computer. I want to be the one typing. I want to be the one using the mouse. But now, with that pair programming, and they understand that you have a driver and a navigator, that solved pretty much all the problems. I mean, they completely understand that concept, and code.org did a fantastic job presenting that. They made a great video, so I recommend all of you to try that. Learning how to ask questions. A lot of students just don't know what to ask. They learned how to develop that bank of questions to kind of get them to get what they need. Using peers as a resource, that's been fantastic. And then all the students, in one way or the other, found successes. So I hope that you can find success with this program in your school or in your aftercare program, or whichever way you choose to use it, at home with your own children. It's just, I can't tell you, what the difference is when I think about where I started and where I am now and where my students will be, 20, 30 years from now. So it's a great feeling. So I've brought in some of the links. Like I said at the beginning of this presentation, I did some research, and I pulled up the 21st century skills in case anybody wasn't familiar with what that meant. Code.org is the particular class that I use. Tinker is another program. Code Academy and Khan Academy has also fantastic opportunities for students to learn JavaScript, code, everything that comes along with all of those things. So I hope you get a chance to check that out and really give this a try on your own. So I am to the end of my presentation. I thank all of you for your time and attention. Good luck with coding. I hope all of you take the time to at least try it on your own and explore it. Maybe you can pass it on to a teacher or maybe somebody in your school or something like that and kind of spread this word, and maybe we can kind of take over computer science again and just move forward. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them now. If not, I'm going to kind of mill about in the back of the class where the podium is back there. So if you have any questions that you want to ask me just individually, I'll kind of hang out back there for a few minutes while the next presenter comes in and gets set up. So any questions that I can answer right now?